Another large storm will be coming to the United States over the weekend, and this is going to bring another risk of severe weather that could even be more significant than what we just saw yesterday across the Great Plains in the Midwest. And we are watching the tropics very closely, as we could see a tropical storm form in the Caribbean Sea later this week. That could actually move into the Gulf of Mexico as we go into next week. So let's begin with what's happening across the United States this morning, and things are very active. We've had this large storm overnight really just turn into a full-blown line of thunderstorms. We end up seeing a couple of tornado warnings late last night around midnight and just after that across Oklahoma and as well as Arkansas. But a lot of the activity now is shifting to the east, and it's just a long line of thunderstorms that's going to be moving through the Ohio Valley and lower Mississippi Valley today. That'll be mostly an isolated damaging wind threat, with maybe one more brief tornado being possible. But aside from that, things are relatively quiet for the east coast of the United States. This trough and this area of convection is going to weaken throughout the day today, so it won't really make it to the east coast, but anything that does make it to areas like Ohio and Indiana will be very beneficial to the significant drought that is ongoing across the United States. And also, happy Halloween. There is a risk of spooky storms today. We do have a marginal threat for severe weather that extends from Indiana back into Texas. It's a very narrow corridor. It's mostly going to be a wind threat for today. The Storm Prediction Center did remove the tornado risk for today, but I wouldn't rule out a brief tornado somewhere down in the lower Mississippi Valley. That'd be mostly a threat during the late morning into the early afternoon hours. So over the next few hours, this line of thunderstorms that's stretching from Indiana into Texas will continue to produce some isolated damaging winds. You'll notice though that line of storms will fall apart as we go later into the morning hours. This is right around lunchtime, and notice how there's not much of it left. There will be some, rain, some moderate to heavy rainfall across the line. Really, the only area where there will be any severe weather after lunchtime will be mostly across areas from southern Kentucky back into Louisiana, and eventually as we go into the afternoon hours, this continues to move into areas like Alabama and as well as Mississippi, but it's mostly just going to be rain, some gusty winds, maybe some lightning, and then after that, this thing is just fizzling out. And honestly, I wish this would go further, because if it did, we would be talking about some very beneficial rainfall for areas like Ohio and as well as West Virginia, but unfortunately, it's not going to leave much of a dent when it comes to the drought that's happening in those areas. Now, we are expecting another large storm to impact the United States over the weekend and into early next week, and we are thinking that this storm will be even larger than the one that we dealt with over the last 48 hours, and this particular storm could also bring a more significant risk of severe weather. So let's talk more about it. This is what the jet stream looks like right now. We still have that shortwave trough that is moving across the Midwest. This thing is going to continue to move off to the east-northeast and weaken over the next 24 hours. The jet stream will become a bit more zonal as we go into Friday and Saturday, but it won't last long, because as we go into late Saturday into Sunday, we are going to get another large trough that is going to dig down into the Rocky Mountains. This is going to allow for a lot of mixing of warm and cold air over the mountainous region, and that should lead to a threat of severe weather, which is going to begin actually tomorrow, but will really be more significant between Saturday and Monday. So that's really the time frame that I'd be the most concerned about. This is as we go into Monday, and notice how that trough continues to move to the east-northeast. This is where the trough location would be. Very strong southwesterly flow. That is something that's going to aid the potential for severe weather, especially for Monday. And then as we go into Tuesday into Wednesday, this will eventually move off to the east. Won't really be impacting the United States, I think, much after Tuesday. And then as we go later into next week, we could get yet again another big-time storm here in the United States, and this one could also be relatively dangerous if it does actually materialize. And then even after that, we are likely to continue to see multiple large storms here throughout the first 2 weeks of November. So buckle up. It is going to be a very active weather pattern here across the United States. Let's break this down on the future radar, beginning with tomorrow, which overall things will be relatively quiet. Really, the biggest thing we'll be watching for on Friday into Saturday is southerly winds coming out of the Gulf of Mexico. That'll aid moisture and bring the potential for some showers as we go into Friday and Saturday. We'll be watching for a low-end risk of severe weather Friday night back over in West Texas. Saturday is the first of probably 3 days of more significant threat of severe weather. Saturday will be mostly focused on the Texas Panhandle. As we go into Saturday into Sunday, this will eventually start to materialize more into a more numerous threat across a larger area. So this is Sunday night. We'll be watching mostly Kansas, Texas, and as well as Oklahoma for the threat of severe weather, with damaging winds, large hail, and also a couple of tornadoes being possible. But I honestly think the biggest day out of this entire week will be Monday and as well as Monday night. Notice this as we go into Monday night. We have a trough really developing here around Kansas. This is the area that will be watching for a more robust and significant threat of severe weather, I think, think, across Iowa, Missouri, back through Oklahoma, and even into Texas. So we're gonna have to watch this very closely. All modes of severe weather would be on the table, and I think if any day has a potential at being a full-blown outbreak, I think Monday would be the day. So we definitely have to watch that closely. Ingredients don't look perfect for that day. It kind of looks similar to what we just saw yesterday, but I do think it's going to be a little bit more significant than what we just saw yesterday, probably with the tornado threat, because yesterday, again, we didn't really see many tornadoes. We had like one, and it didn't happen until midnight. So that's just something to keep in mind. This could very easily top that in terms of intensity. As we go into Tuesday, this continues to move east, and it'll be a weakening trough. And then later into the week, right now the GFS model shows a tropical storm in the Gulf of Mexico. Again, we don't know if that's exactly going to happen, but it is a possibility. And eventually by the late half of the week, we're likely to see another trough moving over the Rocky Mountains, and that'll bring another risk for some severe weather by next weekend. So another storm to be watching for here in the United States. Now, the good news is that we are going to see a lot of rain out of this particular weather pattern. This is what we're talking about over the next 7 days in terms of rain accumulation. And notice areas from Wisconsin back into Oklahoma are expected to see anywhere from 3 to 6 inches of rainfall, according to the GFS model. Outside of there, we could also still see several inches of rain, anywhere in the purples and reds, and then the green colors and those gray colors indicating much lesser rainfall accumulation. But honestly, any rainfall is beneficial for those that are in a drought, which again, most of the United States right now is dealing with some level of a drought. The Climate Prediction Center has gone ahead and put out a large area that we are expecting above average precipitation in over the next 6 to 10 days from November 5th till the 9th. So notice areas, especially back over in the Four Corner states, are likely to see above average rainfall. So that's some good news there. Now, in terms of the temperatures, we're going to stay above average for most of the country into the weekend. The West Coast and the Rocky Mountains will be below average all the way through next week. It's going to stay pretty cool over there. And as we eventually go towards next weekend, we are likely to deal with the same weather pattern where above average temperatures are in the forecast, and as of right now, no big winter storms are in the forecast for anywhere like the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, or the Northeast, so we are still waiting for some of our first snowfall across much of the United States. Temperatures over the next 6 to 10 days, again between November 5th and 9th, currently expecting above average temperatures across the entire eastern tier of the United States, very high likelihood across areas right along the East Coast, and then below average temperatures are expected back over in the Four Corner states and the Rocky Mountains. I know we're heading into November, but the tropics cannot be ignored. We do have a 50% chance now of development in the Caribbean Sea over the next 7 days, with an area that is expected to move northwest and eventually head in the direction of the Gulf of Mexico. A lot of you are wondering, will we be seeing another hurricane in the United States, and will it impact areas like Florida? Well, let's begin with what's going to be happening over the next few days. We do expect gradual development as we go into the weekend and early next week here in the Caribbean Sea. Most ensemble members are not showing anything beyond a very weak tropical depression by Monday of next week. Things start to change though by the middle of next week, where several computer models are indicating that this will become a stronger tropical storm or even a hurricane in the Caribbean Sea. But eventually by the time we get closer to November 7th and 8th, there are a few ensemble members that do indicate the potential for a hurricane entering into the Gulf of Mexico. Now, not all the ensembles show that, but some of them do. If one does enter the Gulf of Mexico, it will likely not be as strong as what we've seen this season, like, Milton or Helene, mostly because the water temperatures are beginning to cool off. However, we still think there's a potential for another tropical storm, maybe even a hurricane impacting the United States as we go into the first couple of weeks of November. But we don't know exactly what's going to happen yet. There is still a lot of uncertainty here. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We'll keep you posted with the latest and with any new developments here on the tropics. As a reminder, today is the final day to get 500,000 subscriber merch on shopmaxvelocity.net. It is the top link in the description below. You can pick up a hat, t-shirt, beanie, mug, or sticker. Again, that is the top link in the description below, shopmaxvelocity.net.